For decades, mainstream science declared the Shroud of Turin a closed case, dismissing it as nothing more than an elaborate medieval forgery. But when advanced analytical tools peer beneath the surface, the fabric reveals an anomaly that threatens to dismantle decades of academic consensus. Encoded within the ancient linen is an impossible three-dimensional signal so microscopically precise that modern technology still struggles to explain its physical existence. It is neither a painting nor an ordinary burial imprint. The data embedded across its fibers behaves like a focused, energetic snapshot frozen in time. As cutting-edge digital mapping and forensic algorithms re-examine this controversial artifact, researchers are confronting an unsettling reality. The linen holds evidence that directly contradicts centuries of artistic convention and conventional physics alike. Was this artifact manufactured by human hands, or are we looking at the physical footprint of an event that defies known science? What lies inside the weave changes everything: forensic anatomy and crucifixion pathology. For centuries, Western art depicted the crucifixion through a lens of solemn grace. Iron nails driven cleanly through the center of open palms, a peaceful tilt of the head, and a body suspended in quiet repose. But forensic medicine and mechanical physics tell an entirely different, far more violent story. The human linen, known as the Shroud of Turin, preserves not an idealized devotional painting, but an uncompromising, scientifically exact crime scene that directly contradicts medieval artistic convention while aligning perfectly with the brutal mechanics of Roman execution. The fundamental flaw in classical depictions lies in simple Newtonian physics and soft tissue anatomy. When an adult body weighing approximately 80 kilograms hangs from a vertical wooden beam, the body does not hang straight down. The arms form an angle of roughly 65 to 68 degrees relative to the upright post. Under these conditions, the downward force of gravity is not merely split in half. The angled pull magnifies the mechanical load on each upper limb. To determine the actual pull on each arm, you take half the body weight, 40 kilograms, and divide it by the cosine of 65 degrees. The resulting tension equals roughly 94.6 kilograms of pull exerted continuously on each wrist and arm. Human flesh simply cannot bear that load. In clinical suspension experiments, the skin, fat, and muscular tissues between the metacarpal bones in the center of the palm begin to tear and fail under loads exceeding 40 kilograms. If an executioner drove nails through the palms, the sheer weight of the victim would rip the hands right off the iron spikes within minutes, collapsing the body forward. To keep a condemned man suspended, Roman executioners had to exploit the structural skeletal framework of the human hand and wrist. Early 20th century researchers proposed that the nails were driven through a small opening in the wrist known as Destot space, which is surrounded by the carpal bones. This region can easily bear over 200 kilograms of force. Yet this theory carries an anatomical contradiction. Destot space sits entirely on the ulnar or little finger side of the wrist. On the shroud, the exit wound on the back of the hand appears distinctly on the radial or thumb side. The cloth reveals a precise radial trajectory. The nail entered the upper palm along the thenar furrow, located roughly 2 centimeters below the base of the wrist, angled 10 to 15 degrees upward toward the arm. This path allows an iron spike to slide through the narrow gap between the index metacarpal, capitate, and the lesser multangular bones without fracturing a single bone. It wedges firmly into the dense carpal ligaments, easily supporting over 150 kilograms of continuous tension, while matching the exact exit wound visible on the fabric, of why no thumbs appear anywhere on the shroud. Early examiners believed the spike severed the median nerve, triggering an involuntary muscle spasm that yanked the thumbs inward. However, cutting that nerve produces the opposite clinical result: a limp, paralyzed hand incapable of flexing inward. The real mechanism is mechanical. As the heavy iron nail traversed the upper palm, it physically dragged the flexor pollicis longus tendon into the wound channel, drawing the thumb across the palm. When the arms were later crossed over the pelvis in death, the thumbs naturally settled out of view behind the index fingers, never touching the burial cloth. The violence recorded across the linen extends across the entire body. The dorsal image displays more than 100 paired dumbbell-shaped puncture marks left by a Roman flagrum taxillatum, a whip tipped with weighted lead balls or sheep bones. The angled downward arcs of these lacerations map out the physical positions of two separate executioners standing on either side of the victim, methodically alternating their strikes from the shoulders down to the calves. The trauma concludes at the chest, where a lance blade created a 4.5 by 1.5 centimeter wound between the 5th and 6th ribs. This puncture released a biphasic flow, a dark, dense stream of red blood cells mixed with an entirely separate, clear fluid. In a body subjected to severe blunt trauma, extreme dehydration, and prolonged asphyxiation, fluid rapidly pools in the pleural cavity around the lungs and the pericardial sac, enclosing the heart. When the weapon pierced the chest wall post-mortem, both compartments ruptured simultaneously, leaving a distinct two-part imprint on the linen that mirrors the exact physiological aftermath of violent traumatic shock. Microscopic and 3D optical image properties. When researchers examine the surface of the Shroud of Turin under high magnification microscopy, the traditional idea of an ancient painting completely collapses. The faint sepia-toned body image does not sit on the cloth like paint or ink. Instead, the discoloration is confined to an unimaginably thin outer layer, the primary cell wall of the individual flax fibrils, penetrating to a depth of only 200 to 600 nanometers. That is less than 1/100th the thickness of a single strand of human hair. Directly beneath that razor-thin surface, the core of the fiber, known as the secondary cell wall of pure cellulose, remains completely white, untouched, and chemically unaltered. Even more startling is how the image creates shading. In any traditional painting or drawing, an artist creates darker shadows by layering more pigment onto the surface. On the shroud, every single discolored fiber has the exact same uniform shade of yellow. The visual gradient of light and shadow is created entirely by the density of colored fibers per square millimeter, operating on a microscopic halftone principle identical to modern newspaper printing or digital display screens. In 1978, the Shroud of Turin research project subjected the cloth to rigorous physical and spectroscopic testing. While microscopist Walter McCrone claimed the image was rendered using red ochre and vermilion in an animal collagen binder, extensive spectroscopic analyses revealed that iron is distributed uniformly across the entire cloth as a natural trace residue from the ancient water-retting process of linen manufacturing. X-ray fluorescence and ultraviolet visible reflectance spectroscopy demonstrated zero correlation between iron concentration and image intensity. The fibers show no brush strokes, no capillary pooling of liquids between the weave, no cracked paint layers, and no fiber-to-fiber cementation, which inevitably occur whenever any liquid dye, stain, or medium touches woven fabric. The optical behavior of the cloth defies standard artistic conventions in two major ways. First observed in 1898 when photographer Secondo Pia developed the first glass plate negatives of the linen, the cloth functions as a photographic negative. Light and dark values are completely inverted on the fabric, resolving into a lifelike, anatomically correct positive image only when the photographic negative is viewed. Decades later, researchers processed the image through a VP8 image analyzer, an instrument designed to map topographical relief from light signals. In an ordinary photograph or painting, light intensity corresponds to how much light reflected off the subject, which creates severe distorted spikes when translated into 3 dimensions. On the shroud, image density correlates directly with the spatial distance between the cloth and the body during image formation. High points like the bridge of the nose and the forehead produced darker values, while deeper recesses like the eye sockets produced fainter values, creating a clean, undistorted, 3-dimensional topographical map encoded directly into the fibers. The final physical anomaly lies in the timeline of deposition. Under microscopic analysis, lifting a blood crust from the fabric reveals pure, uncolored linen underneath. The real human blood soaked through the entire yarn bundle first, functioning as a physical barrier that shielded the underlying flax fibrils from the subsequent energetic reaction that formed the yellow body image. For an artist to have faked this, they would have had to apply anatomically precise bloodstains, serum halos, and coagulated clots onto raw linen first, and then apply a non-directional submicron chemical discoloration around those stains with microscopic precision without getting a single drop of paint beneath the blood. The 1988 radiocarbon dating and sample integrity controversy. In 1988, world headlines declared that the mystery of the Shroud of Turin had been permanently solved. 3 renowned accelerator mass spectrometry laboratories in Oxford, Zurich, and Arizona tested small fragments of the cloth and concluded with 95% confidence that the linen originated between 1260 and 1390. The consensus was immediate. The relic was proclaimed a medieval forgery. Yet beneath the definitive headlines lay severe sampling oversights and chemical discrepancies that would unravel the validity of that test over the following 3 decades. The fundamental flaw began with sample selection. Standard archaeological protocols dictate taking multiple samples from dispersed, pristine areas of an artifact. Instead, the testing team removed a single small strip, roughly 8 by 2 centimeters, from the upper left corner, known as the raise corner. For centuries during public exhibitions, church officials and monarchs held the cloth by this exact corner, exposing it to localized oils, sweat, soot, and repeated physical stress. In 2005, chemist Raymond Rogers published a landmark paper in the peer-reviewed journal Thermochimica Acta that fundamentally challenged the 1988 result. Analyzing authentic thread remnants from the carbon dating sample, Rogers identified end-to-end spliced cotton fibers woven directly into the ancient flax. These fibers were coated with plant gum, an aluminum-based mordant, and alizarin dye, a red colorant extracted from madder root. These ingredients were the exact materials used by 16th century French artisans to execute invisible reweaving, a sophisticated method for repairing worn relic edges. Rogers verified this chemical disparity using a fluoroglucinol hydrochloric acid spot test to measure vanillin, a natural byproduct of lignin decomposition in flax. While vanillin was clearly detectable in medieval control fabrics and the radiocarbon corner sample, it was entirely absent from the main body of the shroud. Because vanillin degrades at a predictable, temperature-dependent kinetic rate over long periods, its total depletion in the main cloth placed the true age of the central fabric between 1,300 and 3,000 years old. The integrity of the sample faced further physical questions regarding the 1532 fire in Chambéry, France, where the folded cloth was exposed to extreme heat inside a melting silver casket. While heating in a closed system could theoretically cause ancient cellulose to absorb modern combustion gases and pyrolytic carbon, radiocarbon specialists noted that skewing a 1st century date to the 14th century would require an uncharacteristically massive level of modern carbon contamination, roughly 64%. The fatal blow to the 1988 test came from within its own measurement logs. In 2019, researcher Tristan Casabianca obtained the British Museum's raw, unpublished data through a Freedom of Information Act request. Independent statistical analysis revealed significant interlaboratory heterogeneity. The data showed a distinct linear age gradient across the tiny 2-centimeter clipping. The apparent age of the fabric shifted by roughly 50 years for every centimeter traversed across the sample. Such spatial variation means the test measured a non-homogeneous composite of old linen and newer repair threads, invalidating the statistical average as representative of the entire artifact. With the 1988 sample compromised, researchers pivoted to non-destructive molecular and structural dating techniques. Italian researchers applied wide-angle X-ray scattering to measure the natural degradation of cellulose crystallinity over time. The structural decay profile of the main shroud fibers matched linen standards from the 1st century, specifically pinpointing a window between 55 and 74. Complementary analyses using Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy and Raman spectroscopy confirmed that the polymeric backbone of the linen fibers aligns consistently with first-century textiles rather than 14th century manufacturing. Blood chemistry and physiological trauma markers. The crimson stains marked across the Shroud of Turin are not paints or chemical dyes, but real biological human blood that carries the exact molecular signatures of severe physiological trauma. Under ordinary conditions, dried blood degrades and darkens within days as iron in the hemoglobin oxidizes, turning ancient stains a dull, dark brown. Yet the blood on the shroud retains a distinct, persistent reddish hue across centuries. This unusual optical preservation is rooted in extreme biochemistry. Severe blunt force trauma, widespread muscle destruction from flagellation, and profound dehydration cause massive rapid hemolysis, where red blood cells burst directly inside the circulatory system. This catastrophic breakdown floods the bloodstream with bilirubin, an orange-yellow bile pigment, far faster than the liver can filter it. When a victim in hypovolemic shock bleeds and the blood clots rapidly, the hemolyzed hemoglobin locks into an altered parahemic state. This orangey-brown compound binds directly with the surplus yellow-orange bilirubin-albumin complexes in the blood serum, forming a chemically stabilized molecular matrix that resists oxidation and preserves a permanent reddish spectrum. The mechanics of how that blood traveled down the body provide a forensic record of physical movement. The puncture wound on the left wrist reveals two distinct streams of blood running down the forearm along two separate gravitational angles, one at approximately 55 degrees and the other at 65 degrees. This bifurcated pattern traces the alternating positions assumed by the victim, shifting between hanging by the arms and pushing upward against the nailed feet to open the chest cavity for breath, though some pathologists suggest the secondary angle formed during postmortem lowering and transport. Immunological and serological analyses confirm the biological identity of these stains. Forensic testing identified key human blood proteins, including hemoglobin, immunoglobulins, and serum albumin. Immunofluorescence testing verified the presence of primate-specific S antigens and detected both A and B antigens, classifying the sample as human-type AB blood. The most compelling physiological marker appears only under ultraviolet light. When viewed under ultraviolet fluorescence photography, the large blood flows, particularly around the lateral chest wound, reveal faint, glowing halos encircling each stain. These rings are formed by pure blood serum that was naturally squeezed outward from a contracting clot through a biological process known as syneresis. Because serum halos are entirely invisible to the naked human eye in normal light, their presence confirms that the fluid was deposited on the textile as live, clotting blood rather than an artificial rendering. Replication attempts and high-energy radiation. Hypotheses. Over the past century, artists, chemists, and physicists have repeatedly attempted to reproduce the Shroud of Turin using known historical and modern techniques. Every effort using traditional methods has exposed an insurmountable gap between macroscopic resemblance and microscopic reality. In 2009, chemist Luigi Garlascelli produced a full-sized replica by draping a sheet over a human volunteer and rubbing acidic pigments mixed with earth into the weave, followed by artificial heating to simulate age. From a distance, the finished cloth bore a superficial visual likeness to the original. But under the microscope, the mechanism collapsed entirely. Garlascelli's replica revealed distinct pigment grains, capillary pooling between adjacent fibers, and chemical penetration deep into the yarn bundle, none of which exist on the real shroud. Furthermore, wrapping a flat fabric around the contours of a living human face produced severe lateral distortion, stretching the features into an unnatural, wide smear. To avoid this effect, the artist had to abandon the human face and rub against a rigid, flattened bas-relief mask. The breakthrough in matching the shroud's unique microscopic properties came from high-energy laser physics. At the Italian National Research Agency, known as ENEA, physicist Paolo Di Lazzaro led a team investigating whether electromagnetic radiation could produce the same ultra-thin discoloration. Using vacuum ultraviolet argon fluoride excimer lasers emitting light at a wavelength of 193 nanometers, the team fired short, high-energy pulses at raw linen. The laser produced a permanent straw yellow coloration that did not penetrate the fabric. Microscopic examination confirmed that the discoloration was confined strictly to the outer primary cell wall of the flax fibrils, matching the exact 200 nanometer depth and spectral signature seen on the shroud without scorching the pure cellulose core underneath. While the Italian team succeeded in replicating the discoloration on a postage stamp-sized area, scaling that physical process to cover an entire adult body revealed a staggering engineering barrier known as the 34 terawatt power paradox. To discolor an area of linen equal to a full human body using vacuum ultraviolet radiation without causing thermal burning, the energy burst must be delivered in an unimaginably brief window of roughly 1/40 billionth of a second. The required peak electrical power equals approximately 34 terawatts, or 34 trillion watts. Generating that instant burst of directed vacuum ultraviolet energy would require the synchronized firing of 14,000 industrial excimer lasers, an output that vastly exceeds the total electrical capacity of any laboratory or industrial facility on Earth today. Equally challenging is the precise chemistry and geometry of the transfer. The coloration on the shroud is not a thermal burn. Ordinary heat scorches, carbonize the bulk fibers, and emit a distinct fluorescent glow under ultraviolet light. The shroud's image exhibits no fluorescence. It is the result of a cold photochemical reaction where polysaccharides in the flax cellulose undergo low-temperature oxidation, dehydration, and the formation of conjugated carbon-carbon and carbon-oxygen double bonds. The final physical constraint involves directional geometry. A standard radiant source emits energy spherically in all directions. If a body emitted light spherically, the radiation would strike adjacent points of the draped fabric from multiple angles, creating lateral blurring, severe shadow overlap, and extreme wraparound distortions across the face and shoulders. Instead, the image on the shroud exhibits absolute vertical collimation. The energetic signal acted along a strictly perpendicular bidirectional axis, projecting straight upward and straight downward between the body and the cloth without lateral scattering. It is a focused, parallel transfer of spatial information that modern technology can conceptualize but cannot physically reproduce at scale. Post-mortem, physical contact and decomposition anomalies. When a human body is enclosed within a linen burial sheet and placed inside a dark, humid limestone tomb, natural forensic processes unfold along an unyielding, predictable timeline. Within hours, cellular breakdown commences, driving the autolysis of internal organs and triggering the release of volatile, alkaline putrefactive compounds. Gaseous byproducts such as ammonia, putrescine, cadaverine, and purines begin to escape the body cavities, permeating the surrounding atmosphere and chemically reacting with any direct organic materials. In standard forensic pathology, these volatile emissions leave distinct, indelible chemical stains, deep structural rotting, and dark discoloration within the woven fibers of a shroud. Yet when microchemical and spectroscopic tests were performed across the entire surface of the Shroud of Turin, researchers discovered a complete void where the chemical signature of death should have been. The linen exhibits zero traces of putrefaction byproducts, zero volatile nitrogenous amines, and zero biological breakdown fluids associated with organic human decomposition. The fabric captures a body held at the very threshold of physiological trauma, frozen in time before the inevitable chemical signatures of decay could imprint themselves upon the flax. The physical behavior of the bloodstains deepens this forensic paradox. When wet blood and serous fluids seep into a dry textile draped over an injured body, the clotting process acts as a potent biological adhesive. Fibrin networks interlock with the microfibers of the linen weave, firmly cementing the fabric directly against the lacerated skin and open wounds. If that cloth is subsequently moved, disturbed, or mechanically peeled away from the corpse, severe physical damage is inevitable. The dried crusts break along jagged lines, the edges of the blood pools smear across adjacent threads, and individual linen fibrils are ripped upward or snapped entirely by mechanical shear forces. Under high-power forensic microscopy, the bloodstains on the shroud show none of these telltale mechanical disruptions. Every single clot perimeter remains remarkably sharp, intact, and structurally pristine. There are no drag marks, no smudged borders, no broken or frayed linen fibrils, and no disturbed fibrin edges anywhere on the cloth. The biological contact between the wounded flesh and the resting linen was broken through a process that left every microscopic dried clot completely undisturbed, eliminating the possibility of physical peeling, unwrapping, or grave robbing. This pristine physical preservation is paired with an uncompromising anatomical record of muscular rigidity. The body image on the shroud is locked in an extreme, unnatural posture of active rigor mortis that mirrors the mechanical strain of crucifixion. The knees remain frozen in an elevated, bent position rather than resting flat against the tomb slab. The rib cage is fixed in an exaggerated, flared state of maximal inhalation, reflecting the desperate physical struggle to draw air while suspended from the cross beams. Furthermore, the dorsal image reveals that the gluteal muscles and calves are not flattened or compressed by the downward pull of gravity against the stone bench, indicating that the body had already hardened into a rigid, non-compliant state before it was laid horizontally into the shroud. In forensic thanatology, this state of severe rigor mortis establishes a precise, non-negotiable temporal window. Following violent death and intense muscular exertion, rigor mortis sets in rapidly, locks the skeletal framework into place, and persists until internal proteolytic enzymes naturally break down the contracted muscle proteins. This enzymatic dissolution inevitably begins between 36 and 48 hours after death, causing the rigid limbs to relax and soften. Because the shroud records severe, unbroken rigor mortis alongside the total absence of early cellular putrefaction, the biological time frame during which the body remained inside the cloth is restricted to a narrow window of roughly 24 to 40 hours. The final barrier to any conventional material explanation lies in the spatial physics of how the image formed across empty space. While the bloodstains were transferred exclusively through direct physical contact between the skin and the fabric, the faint yellow body image follows an entirely different rule. Analysis using the VP8 image analyzer confirmed that the intensity of the yellowed fibrils is mathematically proportional to the physical distance separating the draped cloth from the underlying body contours. The image is not restricted to points of direct touch. It resolves with clarity across physical air gaps measuring up to 4 centimeters. Areas where the fabric hung loosely suspended over the eyes, the throat, and the recesses of the face still bear clear, proportional coloration that gradually fades as the spatial gap widens. This action at a distance property immediately eliminates all physical contact hypotheses, including the transfer of bodily sweat, aromatic burial oils, or localized chemical vapors, all of which diffuse outward unevenly and distort across open air. The linen preserves a dual reality, a real, traumatized body that transferred living bloodstains through physical contact, held in place for a strictly limited window of time without decaying, and a remote energetic projection that mapped the three-dimensional surface of that body across empty space, leaving behind an unexplained physical record that continues to challenge modern forensic science.